Right now, there's a supercomputer out there called El Capitan. It spans nearly half a kilometer and processes a mind-bending 2 quintillion calculations every single second. Sounds unbeatable, right? Well, that incredible piece of tech is actually about to eat dust. Why? Because Google just unveiled an absolute reality-breaking climax in the tech world, their brand new quantum chip, Willow. We're doing an explainer on this today because this isn't just your standard yearly upgrade. No, this is a total wildcard that is single-handedly declaring the dawn of the quantum age. 10 septillion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is a 1 with 24 zeros behind it. To really put this into perspective, if you took today's absolute most powerful, cutting-edge supercomputer and gave it a specific, highly complex problem, it would take that machine 10 septillion years to solve it. Guys, that's literally 500 trillion times longer than the current age of our entire universe. But the Willow chip, it completely shatters that timeline. What takes a normal supercomputer 10 septillion years, Willow processes in just 5 minutes. 5 minutes! It's almost unbelievable.
So why does this matter? Well, it matters to every single one of us because we are literally taking the wildest concepts of science fiction and dragging them straight into pure reality. With fully realized quantum computing, we could run calculations to discover exactly where alien life might be hiding among billions of planets. We could simulate the human body so perfectly that we start curing complex diseases, potentially bumping human lifespans to 150 or even 200 years. I mean, there are even theories, serious theories, that we could upload human consciousness to a digital medium. But okay, here's the reality check. Major tech giants, we're talking Google, Microsoft, Amazon, IBM, Intel, they are all currently sweating buckets trying to solve the massive engineering hurdles required to actually make these machines fully operational for everyday use.
Okay, let's dive into this. To truly understand the sheer magnitude of the quantum leap we're taking right now, we actually need to hit the brakes and travel back about 2,000 years. Before we even touch things like qubits and quantum states, we have to reevaluate one basic question. What exactly is a computer? Because if you're sitting there thinking it's just that glowing screen on your desk or the phone in your pocket, you are in for a serious surprise.
By its absolute purest definition, a computer is simply any device that computes, calculates, and predicts a precise outcome. That is the whole shebang. It doesn't actually need electricity, it doesn't need a screen, and it definitely doesn't need a keyboard. Based on this definition, a simple little pocket calculator is fundamentally a computer. And as we're about to see, even an ancient, shipwrecked mechanism made of completely corroded bronze gears perfectly fits the definition of the earliest computer ever to exist on Earth.
Welcome to the mechanical age. So, over 2,000 years ago, ancient Greeks created what's known as the Antikythera Mechanism. This was an absolute marvel of interlocking bronze gears that actually calculated planetary positions and predicted solar eclipses. Humanity had somehow figured out how to encode the literal rules of the universe into physical movements. Fast forward a bit to 1642, and a 19-year-old French mathematician named Blaise Pascal invents the Pascaline. It was this mechanical box with dials that performed basic addition. Then, by the late 1600s, Gottfried Leibniz gave us the step reckoner, which stepped it up to handle addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But remember, these were entirely mechanical. They relied heavily on humans physically turning cranks and dialing numbers.
And that reliance on humans? Well, that was the catch. While these early mechanical calculators were super impressive, they just couldn't handle complex equations. Because of this, massive printed math and navigation tables were still being calculated manually by human beings. And let's face it, humans make mistakes. In 1707, a devastating tragedy known as the Scilly naval disaster struck. Due to compounding human errors in these manual navigation and math tables, an entire fleet went way off course. 4 ships were destroyed and 2,000 sailors lost their lives. This silent danger made it blindingly obvious. Humanity desperately needed something much more reliable than manual human calculation.
Enter Charles Babbage, the guy widely known as the father of modern computers. To solve this whole crisis of human error, Babbage designed the difference engine. This was a mechanical beast capable of solving complex polynomial equations and actually printing the results in real time. But Babbage, being a visionary, didn't stop there. He went on to conceptualize the analytical engine. Now, while the difference engine was purely a calculator, the analytical engine was revolutionary. Why? Because it was designed to be programmable. We are talking about a steam-powered, 30-foot-long concept that actually had memory and a processing unit.
So, how do you even communicate with a steam-powered behemoth like that? Well, a brilliant mathematician named Ada Lovelace stepped in and created the world's very first algorithm. She realized that by punching specific holes into physical cards, you could actually feed instructions directly to the engine. She wrote this step-by-step sequence to calculate complex Bernoulli numbers, completely proving that a machine didn't just have to passively react to raw input, it could literally be taught a language. This right here was the true birth of computer automation.
But we still had a glaring problem. The mechanical age had a serious bottleneck. You see, even if a machine could be programmed with punch cards, it was still made of heavy, clunky metal gears. It required tremendous physical energy, took up immense space, and honestly, it was painfully slow. The narrative of technology essentially hit a brick wall. If we were ever going to build truly advanced computers, we had to ask ourselves, how do we escape the slow, physical limits of mechanical parts? We realized we needed to harness a fundamental physical force that could process information at lightning speed.
And the answer actually came from a complete happy accident. In 1883, Thomas Edison was tinkering around with his famous light bulbs, just trying to figure out why the glass kept turning brown over time. During these experiments, he placed a metal plate inside the vacuum-sealed bulb and noticed something super bizarre. An invisible current was flowing straight through the empty vacuum from the filament to the plate. He called it the Edison current and patented it right away, even though he had absolutely no idea what to do with it at the time. Without even knowing it, Edison had just laid the entire foundation for the modern digital revolution.
This discovery was absolutely monumental. Scientists soon realized that this little bulb mechanism could act exactly like a faucet, but for electrons. Think about it. By inserting a control grid and applying a voltage, you could attract the electrons, letting them flow freely. Or you could apply a negative voltage to stop them entirely. On, off, flowing, stopped. 1, 0. By controlling the flow of electrons through these vacuum tubes, engineers completely eliminated the need for those slow, clunky mechanical gears and physical punch cards. Suddenly, calculations could be done electronically, using basic binary code.
But let's be real, this early electronic era came with some hilarious yet incredibly frustrating physical realities. Take the ENIAC, for example, the first programmable general-use electronic computer. This thing was 80 feet wide and relied on thousands of these vacuum tubes, which were basically just modified light bulbs. When it was running, it generated so much heat that engineers joked they didn't even need heaters in the winter. And because bulbs inevitably blow out, you had operators literally standing around the machine all day long, just scrambling to replace the 40 to 50 vacuum tubes that exploded every single day. It was, to say the least, incredibly inefficient.
Obviously, we needed to shrink this technology, and that exact need sparks the Silicon Revolution. In 1947, scientists at Bell Labs changed the world forever by inventing the transistor. This was a tiny little device, about the size of a grain of rice, that could control electron flow without needing a fragile exploding glass bulb. Then, in 1958, Jack Kilby figured out how to wire multiple tiny components onto a single board, creating the integrated circuit. And finally, hitting the big time in 1970, Intel managed to fit the entire processing logic of a computer onto one single microchip, the microprocessor. This timeline right here marks the true birth of Silicon Valley and the miniaturization of technology as we know it today.
And from there, the growth was just explosive. This exponential leap was governed by Moore's Law. Back in 1970, that first Intel 4004 microprocessor held just 2,300 transistors. Today, our modern processors pack over 1.5 billion transistors onto a single chip. Think about that leap. We took computers that used to literally be the size of large rooms, requiring tons of cooling, and we shrunk them down to devices that fit comfortably in the palm of your hand, while simultaneously making them millions of times more powerful.
Now, to pull that off, engineers had to make transistors smaller and smaller and smaller. Which brings us to the number 3. Modern transistors inside the latest processors are now just 3 nanometers thin. To really wrap your mind around how incredibly tiny that is, a 3 nanometer transistor is only about 20 atoms thick. 20 atoms! We are practically building machines at the atomic level now, carving microscopic highways for electrons to travel across.
But here is the ultimate climax of our Silicon Heroes journey. Humanity has finally hit a physical wall. We are literally reaching the absolute end of Moore's Law. You see, if we try to shrink these components any further, say down to 2 nanometers, the physical highway becomes so narrow that the electrons actually start wandering off the path. The circuit begins to malfunction, causing extreme heat and critical errors. We aren't just facing a tough engineering problem anymore, we are actually breaking the laws of classical physics. Silicon simply cannot take us any further.
And that right there is exactly why the quantum leap is no longer just a cool option, it is an absolute necessity.
Remember earlier the promise of simulating molecules to cure diseases? Well, to simulate just one single basic molecule of caffeine using classical binary physics, a traditional computer would need 10 to the power of 48 bits of information. To put that conversationally, that is equivalent to 10% of all the atoms on planet Earth, just for one caffeine molecule. Classical computers, no matter how ridiculously fast they get, simply cannot process the immense complexity of atomic reality.
Which leaves us with this final, thrilling question to chew on. We've evolved from bronze gears predicting eclipses, to clunky steam-powered engines, to glass vacuum tubes, and finally to silicon chips barely 20 atoms wide. But now, silicon has reached its absolute physical limit. So, what actually happens to our reality when we fully unlock quantum mechanics? What happens when we finally stop using ones and zeros and start using the mind-bending principles of quantum superposition to process information? I'll leave you with that thought, because we are truly standing on the edge of the greatest technological revolution in human history.